That's right, y'all. Welcome to Westside Radio Online. Of course, I'm Julio G. Thank you to everybody that's logged in and checked us out on YouTube and Apple and Spotify. We appreciate you very much. Make sure you do the subscribe thing. Maybe do the like thing too. That helps us out also, man. But I've been bringing like a lot of my friends, and today I got a special guest here, incredible West Coast producer. We go way back, so we're going to talk a lot of West Coast hip hop tonight. So let's get ready for this one right here. My man FredWreck is in the house. Fred, thank you for coming.
Julio G.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming through, Fred.
I can't believe I miss your voice, man. I miss hearing your voice on my headphones. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I've known you all my life, and I'm kind of nervous right now.
Nah, we're gonna have fun tonight, man.
I'm kind of nervous, Julio G.
Yeah, we got you, bro. We're gonna have fun tonight, man. Fred, I always start off these interviews by asking people where the name comes from and the origin, you know, like where are the origins of the name and what does it stand for? FredWreck.
When I was starting out DJing and all that stuff, you know, everybody had like a 2-person name, Ice Cube. And I didn't have a name. I used to just go by Frederick. You know what I'm saying? I didn't come up with a name. And then when I started DJing, I was hanging out with Joe Quicks and King Tech, and they had, you know, those 2-word names. And one day I was doing a mix show, or we was doing something, and Joe Quicks was like, "Yo, your mix was hard. You was wrecking it, FredWreck." And he's the one. Joe Quicks is the one.
Oh, he gave you that name, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, wow! Shout out to Joe Quicks. This is my guy right there, legend right there from the Bay.
And then everybody just started calling me. I didn't like it at first, but everybody started calling me that.
When I met you, Fred, you were working on dance music. You were doing more dance music. How did you get into working on How did you get into the keyboard game? Because I know you more as a keyboard player in a sense, you know, and then you had that always since the first time I met you. You had the gift of just being able to just. How did that happen? How did the keyboard part come in?
Because I like dance music too. I used to like listen to freestyle music. All my friends listen to freestyle.
And it was popular in the Bay.
Yeah, in the Bay it was very popular, and all the girls liked it. So
sure.
I was like into it. I knew all the, you know, Stevie B. And
you
all
had to play that at a party,
yeah.
for sure.
And I didn't know. And then when I started getting into like when I got a drum machine and all that and started making beats, there weren't like a lot of MCs around that wanted beats. Everybody that wanted music during that time like wanted freestyle music. You know what I'm saying? So to me it was like learning the equipment and doing all that. And then my mom bought me a keyboard. She bought me a Juno keyboard because there used to be a guy on the radio back then named Cameron Paul.
Legend.
Yeah, and he was like it was like Theo and Cameron Paul were on the radio, and their mix shows were like incredible.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they used to have, but they would like always add their own keyboards and their own drum machine stuff to their mixes. So that's kind of how I got into like, I need to get a keyboard like them and start playing keyboards and learn how to play the keyboards. I mean, I didn't learn how to, I just got on there and start hitting the keys.
Wow.
You know, so that's kind of how I got into that until I had another friend of mine named Assassin that he was like into hip hop. So he would come over and bring records over and be like, "Yo, sample this." And I remember he brought Funky Drummer, James Brown. And when the break came in and I heard it, I was like, "Oh, is that where that's from?" I didn't know. Like, you heard it on every record in hip hop, you know? And then that's when I got into sampling.
Understanding the sampling side of it.
And then I was like, then I started meeting other people that were into hip hop, and then I kind of got into more doing hip hop.
Right. No, because I remember, like I said, I remember when when I first met you, you were like heavy on the keyboards. I always wanted to know, how did you transition? You know, doing that. Tell me about the Bay at that time, Fred, because that was a special time, and I don't think people really give the Bay enough respect for what they were doing up there, because they had their own world. Like, you had like the Wake Up Show, and then like you said, you had Cameron Paul. You had like a lot of people in the Bay that were just doing incredible things. Like, you know, so give me a little, like, what was the vibe back then? What was going on back then?
It was, the vibe was cool.
And KMEL, let me say KMEL, because that played an instrumental thing in all you guys.
Yeah, KMEL was like a big step for me because I had got a job working at a record store, Upstairs Records. And so working there at this record store every week, I would take the phone calls from the radio station, and they would call and be like, "What's the top 10 records that people are buying?" Because they wanted to know what everyone was buying. So then I started making them a top 10 playlist and faxing it to them. So every week I'd fax it to a guy named Hosh Gorelli. He was the music director. And then one day he called me up, because he would call me and he was into house music, so he liked the imports. So I'd get him some imports he'd be looking for, like house imports and stuff. And one day he called me, he's like, "Hey, if there's any DJs that, you know, any good DJs that come into your store, tell them to send their tapes up to the station, an hour tape, and he told me to format and all that. And I'm looking for new DJs because they had fired Cameron Paul at that time. They had got into it with each other, and nobody knew the story, but we knew he was gone. You know?
Yeah.
So I was like, fuck it. I make mixtapes in the store every day and sell mixtapes anyway. So fuck it. I took one of my reels because they had a reel to reel machine there, and I used to do my mixes on the reel to reel machine. And I did a mix and I sent it to him, and he played it the same night. And then I was like, fuck it. I sent him another one. And then I went up and met him and brought him some records. And then he was like, man, I'm looking for DJs. You want to DJ up here? And I was like, hell yeah. So that was like
the beginning.
That was the beginning for me, like to be like.
And KMEL was big, bro.
It was big too. And the cool thing about it, Hosh and our music director was Keith Naftali. So they were both like, they let the DJs pretty much do anything. And so our night was mostly on Saturday nights. They had this thing called Club 106.
I remember that.
So every hour there was a different DJ all the way till like 4:00 in the morning or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So, I start on the later slot, and they move me up a slot, move me up a slot, move me up a slot. And so every hour, every week I'd have my mix show up there, and I'd be at home all week making it and cutting the tape with the razor blade and mixing and, doing all that stuff. And then
it meant a lot back then, though. It was like a big deal because that's what people were listening to. So you're basically like playing if you're playing on a Friday or a Saturday, you're playing
Saturday
for a lot of people that are listening.
Going out to the clubs.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
Yeah, and there wasn't no internet back then, so you listened to us DJs to hear what records was playing. Like people would be calling, "What is that?" And they'd be like, "Yo, go to Upstairs Records and get it." So the guy at Upstairs, he liked that because he got to sell his records and vinyls and stuff like that. And so that's how I kind of got into the music business of being at the radio station. And once they let me up in there, I was in there every day. Like I wanted to learn everything about it. I was in the production room learning how to make spots with the guys that made the spots, and I just wanted to be there. I didn't have anything to do. I had a Bug, and I drive my Bug all the way up to San Francisco and just like want to be at the station, you know what I'm saying, and learn from those guys. And then at the same time, the Wake Up Show was added there, and they started doing their hip hop stuff. And because on our mix show we could play, they let us play anything. We play R&B, a little hip hop, this, that, house,
New Jack Swing, whatever was popping. Yeah, it was hot.
But on the Wake Up Show, it was cool because I was like, man, these dudes like hip hop like me, and it was raw. So now I can be up here after the mix show kicking it with the Wake Up Show people, and then I would play my beats up there with them, or they'd hear my mix and Swain Tech be like, yo, who made that? I'm like, yo, I made that. So then me and them started being friends.
Yeah.
And then I go to Tech's house, and he was into DJing and producing, and he had a drum machine at SB 1200, and we was doing stuff, and we just started clicking together as people that liked hip hop. And then me and Joe clicked together really good because Joe was into like record digging and record shopping, and he showed me like how to find samples and how to look on the back of the record and see the name of the producer and who did it, and like always trying to find what did Pete Rock sample and what did Premier sample, and this is the sample from Marley Marl.
Shout out to Joe Quicks too, man. Legend. Definitely from the Bay for sure.
So
man.
Me and him really clicked like that together. You know?
Yeah, that's tight. And then you end up coming to LA because that's how we hooked back up, because I had met you at Upstairs Records in the Bay.
Right.
And we had mutual friends, and you end up coming to LA because the Wake Up Show came to LA.
Right.
And that's when I had jumped on the radio around the same time as the Wake Up Show. They were like maybe a couple weeks after I started at 92.3 The Beat. So then they came down. But that's the reason you ended up in LA, correct?
Yeah, because our program director, he left the station and went down there.
That's right.
And came Keith came down here. He was like, and he wanted DJs because it was a fresh station. So he was like, anybody that wants to come down.
Shout out to Keith Naftali because he was the person that gave me my break. Him and Michelle S. were the first people that told me. Like, he was the one that came to me one day and said, you should be on the radio and talk more. And I was like, why? I don't want to talk, bro. But he was the one that really seen something in me, and I appreciate him very much. A big shout out to Keith Naftali.
Yeah, me too, man.
He's the reason. Him and Michelle S. are the reason why they believed in me and gave me that chance to. But he discovered a lot of people, man.
He sure did.
He had a good. He just knew how to pick people. Like, hey, I think you should be doing this, and I think
encourage them to see their talent.
No, absolutely. So shout out to Keith, man. I appreciate it.
Even with
much.
like Theo was just a DJ on the air, and then he used to get on the mic later on at night and just screw around, because
he became the
and then they liked how he sounded, and he was like, "You sound good. You got to keep doing that. Fuck DJing."
Yeah, straight up. And he became the biggest afternoon guy in LA at that time. Like he was
and he brought him from LA. So Keith, I remember in the beginning when I'd go up to KMEL, and I'd be like, "I'm here to see Keith." Because he was the boss.
Yeah.
And he was like, "You're really persistent, aren't you?" I'm like, I didn't even know what that was. I'm like, oh shit, am I bothering these people? Like, you know what I'm saying? But then, you know, he was like, all right, do this. And then Hosh, the one thing about Hosh was cool was every DJ at the station had to turn in a remix every week.
Wow.
Or every couple of weeks. So what he did was like, all right, take this song, go on the playlist. Any song that's going down, I want you to take it and make your own version of it. It's got to be the same length, but mix it with another record or do a remix of it. Wow. You know what I'm saying? Like Cameron Paul used to do. Because Cameron Paul used to used to flip and have his own remixes and stuff.
Edits and everything.
They didn't have nobody doing that now. So all of us DJs started competing against each other to do it. Me, Theo, Alex Mejia, and you know whoever else was there. We turn in our remixes, and if they liked it, they play it all day on the air. They'd be like the FredWreck remix of Tony or whatever. So that's kind of how I got into like production and doing my own version of things. And then what would happen is Keith and Hosh would send that remix out to all the sister stations, because if it started doing good on the chart,
they'd send it out.
They'd send it out on a reel and send it to the sister station. And before you know it, now you got the labels going, hey, what is that remix all these stations are playing? And they go to Hosh and be like, well, our DJ did that. You got to pay him for it if you want it. So then they'd pay us, like, you know, like I think I got $1,000 for a remix I did one time. I don't remember what it was.
Big money back then, though.
But I didn't even care about that. But when you get the vinyl and it's got your name on the vinyl, I was like, wow, I got my name on the vinyl. Like it was like crazy. A big thing, you know. So that's kind of how I transitioned from DJing to like producing and remixing.
I want to ask you, Fred. I remember you were working at MCA Records.
That was after.
And then that was after. But you end up going into like the label side of doing that. How did that come about? How did you get into MCA at that time?
Because at the Wake Up Show, we used to have all the label people coming up to the label to get us to play their records. So all the promotions, the DJ promotions guys would come up there and be like, yo, play this, play our new so-and-so. And a guy named Brian Sampson, he was from the Bay too. He worked at like a college magazine. I forgot what it was called, but he ended up doing DJ promotions at MCA. And we didn't have the Wake Up Show till the weekend, so all week we didn't pretty much do anything. We just spent a few days during the week producing the show and getting it ready. But the rest of the time, I didn't really do anything. And he was like, "Yo, if you want to come up and intern for me and help me out at the label, I could use some help with somebody calling the DJs and all that." And I was like, "Yeah, fuck it, I'll go up there," because it was like, "Oh, I get to go see how the record company's working."
Yeah.
So I was up there working with him for a couple months and stuff. And then his boss had got fired, and then they hired Hank Shockley from the Bomb Squad to be the president. And I was a big fan of Hank Shockley. So at the same time that I was helping him do radio promotions at MCA, another label, Jive Records, wanted to hire me to do A&R in the West Coast because they heard about, you know, that somebody got around that I would work on the radio and this and this and this and that. And then when Hank Shockley found out I was going to leave, he was like, fuck that. I'm hiring you as an A&R over here. So now I went from radio promotions to he hired me as the West Coast A&R for MCA. Yeah.
And it's crazy because the reason why I asked you that is because you, I want to ask you about this Jay-Z thing, because you end up doing a remix for a group called Shai.
Yeah.
And you get Jay-Z.
Yeah.
And nobody had heard of Jay-Z like that. They knew him.
There was like one song out or something.
Yeah, but I'm talking about he wasn't Jay-Z like that. He was just cool. Okay, Jay-Z, this guy named Jay-Z, right? But you end up getting him for this Shai remix. And for anybody that wants to look it up, it's the
Marley Marl remix.
It's a Marley Marl remix of a Shai song, but it has 3 verses of Jay-Z.
Yeah.
He did like a whole song. I have to ask you, how did that come about, and how did you even think to use? First of all, the Marley Marl remix was just crazy.
Yeah.
That alone just made the record dope. Right. But you get this guy on there and he kills it too on the record, no doubt about it. But how did you get him to do that for you?
Okay, so I played that whatever record that Jay-Z had. I used to play it on the Wake Up Show. And then somehow I had linked up with Marley Marl. I don't know where I met him, or I was a big fan of his.
Yeah, of course.
And, you know, and now I'm working with Hank Shockley and Marley Marl. These are the guys I grew up listening to. You know what I'm saying? I love their beats. So somehow I get linked up with Marley Marl. Marley Marl, I'm like, you know, try to politic it with him. Like, yo, why don't you do a remix for me? Shai was my group that I A&R'd. So he was like, all right, send me something.
So you A&R'd Shai. I A&R'd
that record. Yeah.
Okay.
So I was like, I was like, all right, well, I got this record that we got coming out that's just a cappella. So I send it to him, and then he put the vapor, the
Nobody Beats the Biz.
Nobody Beats the Biz beat. He redid it and put it over that. So he was like, I was like, so then I played it for Hank. I was like, yo, Hank, look what look what Marley did for us. He was like, oh, you guys, you guys got to get a rapper on that, yo. The shit is bananas, but you need a rapper though. I was like, yo, there's this one dude I've been playing his record, Jay-Z. He's hard as fuck. He's like, Jay-Z, where's he from? I'm like, yeah, I think he's from Brooklyn or something. And Daddy-O from Stetsasonic was an A&R too. So they flew me out to New York for something, and then I just happened to be out there, and we still had.
And the reason why you picked to have Jay-Z was only because you had heard him on a song.
I heard him on that song, and then
maybe Dead Presidents or something like that.
I forgot what the first single was that he was on that I had liked, and then me and Daddy-O were talking about it, and he was like, yo. Because I was like, yo, I want to get this dude Jay-Z. He's like, oh, Jay-Z's from Brooklyn. Yo, that's my boy. That's my people. You should go talk to him. I'm going to call him up and tell him you're going to go talk to him. I was like, all right, cool. So he called him up, and he had an office somewhere in New York. And I went down to his office, and him and Dame Dash was in there. It was just like an office with a desk in there. And I walked in there, and I introduced myself and talked to him. I was like, yo, I got this remix, and, we want you to get on it. What is it going to take for you? Do you want to listen to it? So I played it for him in his office, and he was like, and this is, he had an office already. His mindset was already to do, to do business with his man. So he was like, all right, I'll do it. How much you guys want to, how much you going to pay me for it? I'm like, how much do you want? He's like, I'm going to need 10. I'm going to need 10 for this. I'm like, 10,000? And he was like, yeah. I was like, ooh. I was like, all right, let me go talk back.
But that was a lot back then.
I didn't say anything, but I was like, let me go back and talk to Hank and see what he says, and I'll get back to you. He's like, all right, let me know. So, me and him chopped it up, and I went back to the MCA offices in New York, and I was like, yeah, Hank, he said he's going to do it. He's like, all right, cool. I'm like, but he wants to get 10,000. He's like, 10,000? Yo, that's bananas, yo. Yo, that's bananas. What are you talking about? 10,000, yo. And he started, Hank is going crazy, And Daddy-O was like, yo, but he's really hot on the street right now, Hank. He's like, all right, fuck it. I'll give you the 10,000 for that. All right, I'll give you the 10,000 for that. I was like, damn, I was like, crazy. All right, cool. So I called him up. I was like, yo, Hank said, I got you 10,000 for you for that. He's like, all right, cool. Send me a car. Because we had to go out to Marley's and record it. And Marley lived somewhere outside of New York. Mm-hmm. And I went, picked him up in a car, and we all went to Marley's house, and Marley put the beat up, and he didn't write nothing down. I was like, this motherfucker ain't gonna write a rap. He just freestyled. I was like, oh, that was kind of hard. So then he freestyled 2 verses. And then we were.
So basically, when you walk in there, you're like, you don't even know what he's gonna do. He just says, "Oh, okay, put the mic on." And he
I
just
never worked with him before. I didn't know.
Wow.
So he went in there and he freestyled both verses, and I kind of was a little bit tripped out about that. I'm like, this fool's just gonna jack us for 10 G's, and he ain't even gonna write nothing. But the verses was hard.
They
were.
Know
what I'm saying? And then at the end, we were like listening to it, and then I just was like, I just looked up at Marley. I was like, yeah, but right here at the end, it's like I feel like he needs to come back in again. And then Marley was like, yeah, it would be dope if he came in at the end a little bit and did something. And he was like, you guys want me to do something at the end? I thought he was going to say no. And he was like, play the beat for me. And then we played the beat. And he just kept listening to it. And then he went in the booth and did the last verse. And then he bounced. That was it.
That was it, huh?
Yep.
Wow, Fred.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to know that story because I love that record. I love the remix. I loved everything about it. The Marley Marl.
Yeah.
Putting Marley on there and doing the Shai. I want to ask you.
And that was my first time going to New York too. So Marley picked me up from the airport in his white BMW, like you see on the album cover. Mm-hmm. And he gave me a whole tour. He took me to the Bronx, and he took me to Queensbridge, and he showed me where they used to run the extension cord to do the park thing. And when we got there, Havoc from Mobb Deep was in the park writing. Wow. And he was like, yo, Marley. And he was like, yo, who's that? And then it was crazy.
Wow. Queens, bro.
Yeah. It was a really dope experience.
Let me ask you about working at a record label like that. What did you gain and learn from that? What's like something that you say, hey, I'm glad I did that I learned this from dealing with a record label or being inside of the dynamic of how it works. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do you make things work? How do you make things money get moved around? Who could get paid? What did you learn from that, Fred?
I learned a lot from it because Hank was my boss, and then we had a couple other bigger bosses. Mm-hmm. We had a guy named A.D. Washington that was like the vice president of promotion. So I kind of was working for him first, and then I went to work for Hank. And then, at MCA, it was like they got soundtracks, they got this, they got everything. So I got to like see all the departments and how they work with each other. and just see how a record is completed from the process of how to do the administration of it and the credits and the clearances and the contracts and the going to the mastering and, you know, just the whole process of how a record is done. And then, you know, you're at a record company. So you're sitting in the finance meeting, you're sitting in the promotions meeting, you're sitting in the marketing meeting, and you're seeing how people are pitching marketing ideas of how to market something, which I never knew anything about
that. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it was a really like a dope experience for me because it allowed me to think of things later on when I started to make records to be like, okay, this might be a good marketing idea if I do this and do that, and kind of how to tie it all in together.
Right.
Instead of just making beats.
Right.
You know, so that part of it, I got to see the whole behind the scenes of a major record company.
Yeah.
Of how to do from A to Z, you know, and have the whole roster of artists that we can, okay, like if we're working on Al Green's record, that we can be like, hey, let's put Casey and JoJo on that with him, and you know, let's do this and let's do that. Or, you know, some departments I didn't really cross with, but it would be cool. It was really cool to be up there and be like, yo, BB King is down here in the office. Come have some crawfish with us. And like we go down there, and BB King would be down there and telling stories. So that part of it was really cool.
Yeah. You're going to learn a lot in this interview because me and Fred go way back, and I was on the radio at the time. So Fred was the reason why I had these great drops that people ask me about all the time, like these intros and outros that I would do.
Right.
And Fred was the person that was pretty much doing, I want to say about 80% of them, 70% of them, because other people would give me their own stuff done. But Fred, you were always somebody I would go to, and you would always be able to put these things, a great King T one you did for me, Snoop Dogg you did for me a few times. But from that, I remember one time we were driving on the 101 freeway, and you were playing me a beat in your car, and I remember telling you, I said, man, Fred, I just think you need to start working with some different rappers, man. You need to get with like, you know, you were working with some people, but I was like, man, you need to get with like some bigger rappers. I just think you got the right music. I just think you need to. So then Fred started making me these beat CDs. And so on Westside Radio on Friday nights, whoever I would have, I'd be like, hey, this is my homeboy FredWreck. Check out his beats. You know what I mean? I remember one week I had Trey D on, and we went out to my Tahoe. I had the Tahoe with the sounds, and I played him like 5 beats, and he was like, oh, cuz, I got to take this to Dog, cuz, like this hard, cuz, this your homeboy? I'm like, yeah, this is my homeboy FredWreck. And that's kind of how, you know, you started to get into that world of like, some people started like, okay, let me check out, let me check out FredWreck. But that was very smart, Fred, how you used to do that, because you used to have like 30 beats. I was like, damn, man.
That fit on the CD.
Yeah, you used to have like 30 beats. But how did do you remember how the first beginning came when you started to work with Snoop Dogg and the Dog Pound and get into that circle?
It was kind of like, just like how you said, like giving my beat CDs out to people, but doing those intros and stuff for you, I learned doing that with the Wake Up Show, because me and Sway and Tech and Joe started that. They were the ones that started to do like, let's do the Wake Up Show intros, and at first it would be just like their homies that would rap on it. The Wake Up Show, some. So then, you know, we'd always try to do a fresh one. So whenever we'd have rappers come by, whenever they do their interview, they'd walk to the next production room to do some drops. And then I'd be like, hey man, you guys want to do 8 bars for the Wake Up Show? And then I put one of my beats on and record them, do 8 bars. Next week I do another 8 bars and then another 8 bars. And then before you know, we got a new intro.
Wow.
So that's how I kind of started getting into that, because it was cool, because then once in a while, one of them would like say your name on the beat or something. And then, you know, we started using the intros. And so when you started to do your show, not the Westside Radio, but you're on the air.
Just in general.
Yeah, then I was like, yo, I want to start doing that for Julio. So, you know, so I was like, yo, whoever would be by my house, I'm like, fuck it. Like, yo, get on this beat for Julio real quick. Let's do, because I like doing those, because it's something instant.
And I think it helped you out a lot, because somebody's listening to your beats every day. And
that was the thing. See, you're on every day, so every day you're playing my intro.
A few of them. It was not just one. But a couple.
And I would try to make new ones and keep it fresh.
Yeah, I love the King T when you did. That was an early one you did for me. I remember when I was like, oh, Fred, this is so hard. I played that so much. That King T one. And Snoop's. You did a lot of great ones.
Yeah, and I just liked doing it, and it was fun because everybody would hear it on the radio every day, and it was like a good way I didn't really all the way think of it like, oh, I need to do this to promote myself. I was really doing it because, you know, I was trying to support you too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it was fun getting Snoop on a song, or these are already. I was already starting working with them already,
and I appreciated that because people don't know that like Snoop really supported me, man. Like, anytime you called him like, hey, we don't come by, man. We need an intro for Julio G radio show. All right, come through, cuz.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, damn. And, when we were doing it, I'd be like, okay, like this may fall apart any second now. He probably can't do it. I would be thinking, but man, Snoop would get in the booth and be like, give me a joint. Yeah, and he'll just freestyle something so dope for me. I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to put this on the radio.
Yeah, because what happened is everybody listened to you on the radio. So everybody's driving around and they're hearing other people on the intro. So they're like, oh, I'm like, you want to do the new Julio G intro? And they're like, yeah, because then they want to hear themselves in the intro. That's how it kind of started.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you like trading, hey man, when you doing the next Julio G intro? Cause I'm trying to get on.
Yeah,
because they hearing themselves every day on the intro, so it made it fun.
And they were so good, cool. Fred, because the music you did and everything was just so. Everybody always asked me about these intro and these radio drops. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to ask you about the Doors, because I heard a song today and it took me back and I totally forgot that you had worked with Snoop Dogg and you did a song with the Doors.
Yeah.
Can you explain how that came about? Because I'm a big fan of Jim Morrison, like the Doors. Like, people that don't know, I'm a huge fan. Like heavy, you know that, Fred?
Because you put me up on the
Doors, right?
Yeah,
we used to play in the Doors.
I used to listen to the music, but me and you would watch the movie.
The movie.
We watch that shit over and over again. Get high and smoke that shit. Like Jim Morrison was hard.
How did you get to work with Ray Manzarek and the other guys from the group? How did you get to? And then you got the original. Those are Jim Morrison's vocals, right?
Yeah,
on that song.
That's the real. Yeah.
So explain how that happened.
The way that happened was then after me and you started watching that movie. When I started going on tour with Snoop and playing in his band or DJing for him, we'd sit in the back of the bus, play video games and stuff, and sometimes we would just put on a VHS and watch movies. So I always had that movie. I would put that movie on and we'd watch it, and he'd watch it and he loved it. So Snoop was like, man, that's Jim Morrison's hard as fuck. I never really listened to this shit before. And then the opportunity came around where a video game called Need for Speed wanted Snoop to do a song, and somehow they wanted to do Riders on the Storm. And then when he came, Snoop was like, yeah, this video game, they want me to redo Riders on the Storm. You got to remix it for me. And I was like, remix Riders on the Storm? Like I'm not, there's some things that I'm just not going to remix. Like you're not going to remix Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah.
You're not going to remix Bohemian Rhapsody. You know what I'm saying? Things like that. Some stuff is like, I like to like sample other stuff that hasn't been heard.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But to sample stuff like that, that's like a legendary classic. So I was like, nah, you can't sample Riders on the Storm. And he was like, all right, cuz, well, if you don't do it, I'm going to have Quaz do it, another producer. I'm like, Quaz don't even listen to the Doors. I was like, man, Quaz ain't going to do it. He was like, well, then you do it, cuz. I was like, shit. All right, man, let me take a whack at it. So his manager had the Doors send me the reel, and I took the vocals off. And then I found other vocals on the reel that they didn't use.
Ooh.
So then I just
put
it together and did something to it. And then the day before I was supposed to mix it, Snoop did his verse and all that stuff on there. I had called the manager because me and the manager had to talk a little bit to get the reels and all that. And I said, hey, just out of respect for you guys, because I didn't really want to remix your guys' shit, but I'll be mixing at the Westlake Studios. And if you want, tell the Doors to come down too and listen to it. I was just joking. And they were like, he was like, what time do you want them to be there at? I'm like, well, I'm going to be in there at 7 o'clock. This is when I used to do late sessions. And they're like, they can't come, but they can come on this other day. I'm like, oh, I don't have the studio this other day. I thought he was kidding. So I was like, well, he was like, no, they can come on this one day. They're going to fly in. One of them had to fly in. The other ones were here. And so they came to my house and did it. He's like, I'm like, well, shit, if they're serious, let them come to my house, because we just laying tracks anyway. Lo and behold, the first guy knocking on my door was Ray Manzarek. It's Uncle Ray, open up. I couldn't believe it.
Wow, that's mind blowing.
I was just kidding. I was like, man, are we really they're coming? They're like, yeah, they'll be there tomorrow. I was like, all of them? They're like, yeah, all of them. And they all three of them showed up. And Be Real lived down the street from me, and I was calling him like, yo, you ain't gonna believe who's at my house right now. Come down here, bring some weed right now. Wow. And he was a fan too, so he came in there, and they were fans of his too. They were like, wow, Cypress Hill. And Ray Manzarek was like, man, I haven't smoked weed in 10 years, bro, but I'm gonna have to smoke weed with Cypress Hill.
Wow, that's crazy.
And then we just sat in my studio, and I got some video of it somewhere.
Wow, that's
and we
amazing.
sat in the studio and we knocked it out. And then that went so well that later on, Tech Nine.
I was gonna say you did another song with them.
Tech Nine, yeah, he called me and was like, "Yo, I want you to remix a song for me because I like the Doors too, because his company's Strange Music, and it's named after Strange Days, their song." So I was like, "You want to do it with the Doors?" He was like, "What?" I was like, "I don't know. Let me call him and ask him and see." So I called Ray and them, and they were cool with it. Huh? And we went to the Village Recorders, and they came in and we knocked it all out again.
Mind-blowing,
and then like about 6 months later, Ray Manzarek died.
Wow, that's crazy, man.
It was the last record he did.
I love Ray Manzarek too, man. He was. I mean, I love Jim Morrison, but Ray Manzarek's what he did with the Doors is just mind blowing, bro. Yeah. He was just so amazing.
All three of them are incredible, great musicians, man.
Yeah, man.
I'm so honored to know them too.
That's a great record. I just happened to pop up. I was looking for music today, and I was like, oh my god, I forgot Fred did this, man. I was thinking about the Doors. I used to watch the movie and the whole thing, so that was really cool. Yeah. Fred, I want to ask you about Kurupt. You have done some real like incredible records with Kurupt. I mean, I think that album would Ride With Us and Represent the GC. I mean, you gave them some bangers, and that had calling out names. Mm-hmm. You gave them you shaped pretty much that record out for them. Those are the standout songs of that record. When you were making those records, were you just like when you did Ride With Us? Did you just feel like it's it, or did you just like, oh, it's cool, it's just another record? You know what I mean? Did you know that it was gonna be that?
Nah, I didn't know that. I was just like, you know, you always find inspiration in other things. You know what I'm saying? And at that time, me and Exhibit was roommates together.
I remember that.
We lived together, and I had my studio in the garage, and so I'd just be in there every day making beats. And Exhibit had just got a deal with Loud Records, and Superfly was supposed to be signed to Loud Records, and I don't know what happened. He didn't sign with them, but he ended up producing Exhibit's some songs for Exhibit. So he started coming by the house. And then I met him, and he was like, "Oh, I'd be in the back." He was always kicking it with Exhibit, but I'd be in the back making beats, and he'd be like, "Oh, those beats sound cool. You got a copy of that?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I gave him a CD with like 30 beats on there or something, and those two beats was on there, "Ride With Us" and "Represent That GC." Really? Wow. The beats were on there. Now, "Ride With Us" was like my version of Ice Cube had a record called. I think
How to Survive in South Central?
No, it was called Let It Rain or something.
Oh yeah, Westside Connection. Let It Rain.
No, was it Westside Connection?
Yeah, Let It Rain. Make it bang. Yeah, Westside Connection.
Yeah, so I like that record. I like the feeling of it. So,
I think that was Crazy Tunes that produced that.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And so I like the feeling of that record, and so that was like my inspiration of when I did Who Ride With Us, the beat. it was just the Juno and the Moog
and that's Badass in the hook.
And Badass and Diamond, yeah.
Rest in peace, yeah, rest in peace.
So yeah, that was like I want to make a beat like that. You
know
what I'm saying? So that was my version of
Killed it
of that. So then I gave Superfly the CD, and then like maybe a week later he called me, was like, "Hey man, I want you to hear this beat that I made. Maybe you could lay something on it." And I was like, "All right." And he played it for me over the phone, and he was playing my beat, and I was like, "Man, that sounds like my beat." And he was like, "That is your beat. I'm just fucking with you." He was like, "Hey, somebody wants to record this shit. Come down here to the studio, to Sound Castle in Los Feliz, and bring whatever you need to lay it down." And I was like, "Oh shit, all right, cool." I didn't know who it was for or anything, so I get in my car, I put the drum machine and the keyboards and whatever I used to make it. I drive to Sound Castle and I walk in. And when you walk through the double door, I just heard the dum 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 dum. Wow. And I just heard it playing really loud in there. When I walked in the room, I was like, these motherfuckers is listening to my beat. And they were all in there writing while the beat was just playing on repeat. It was Snoop, Trady.
That's what Represent the GC?
Represent the GC. So Butch Cassidy, J.O., Kurupt, Daz, and Battle Cat had his stuff set up in the back. That was the first time.
That's how he ended up on the record, huh?
Yeah, because his shit was set up in the back.
Wow.
And so when we started recording, he was doing the talk box. He was just like freestyling.
Also, he did Represent that Long Beach.
Yeah,
he did that. Okay.
Yeah, he was doing that. He was doing that live while we were just playing it back, and the engineer was recording him on the tape. And because he had this like Shure mic that wouldn't pick up all the feedback, so he was just doing it. And that's why in the beginning he's like, He started saying about Eminem and all that stuff. That was live.
That was live because you guys are in the background telling him, and he says, "Yeah, I just said it low, baby."
Yeah, he was. That was just like I was just like press record. You know what I'm saying? And then
he killed that because it makes the intro to that record to me.
Yeah, that's it. It sets it off. You know,
it sets it off absolutely.
And so I was just kind of like a bystander watching them all record, and then Superfly brought me in, was like, "Yo, he's the one that made the beat," and then Snoop pulled me aside and was like, "Damn, you made this beat?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Man, this is Snoop Dogg." Like, wow. And he was like, "You got any more beats?" I was like, "Yeah, I got a lot of beats." He was like, "What you doing tomorrow at 9 a.m?" I was like, "I ain't doing shit." He's like, "Here, take my address down and come up to my house and bring some beats up there."
Wow.
And then I went up to his house the next morning up to Claremont, and me and him been friends ever since.
Yeah. Let me back up on that record real quick so we could talk about these. I want to share this with the people, the public, so they can understand. And that's why I like doing this podcast, because it allows me to for me to talk and me to give you the stories, because I just think that a lot of people just say what they want to say, but half that stuff be fake too. It's just right. So I want to make sure that I put it on record and we're clear about these things, right? So I want to talk about these records because I broke Ride With Us because I had heard it with you because I was hanging out at your house.
Yeah.
So I had first dibs on all these songs.
All of them.
Because I heard them. And
because I'd be like, Julio, listen to this.
Yeah, and I told you, I would tell you, Fred, that's a banger. That's it. That's the one.
Yeah.
At the same time, when you said you were living with Exhibit, I would go hang out over there, and Exhibit was working on 40 Days, 40 Nights. Mm-hmm. So that's why I played so much of 40 Days, 40 Nights on the radio, was because I was getting to hear the songs. When he played me Putty Pop and all these, I was like, man, that's the one. I'm going to play that one. I'm definitely going to play that. So it was kind of a cool spot where you had it at your house, because I was able to kind of come by at night and they'd be like, they got to play me something. Like, man, let me hear this. You know what I mean? So Ride With Us, I broke that record, and then Represent the GC, I break that record also. So on 92.3 The Beat, that record almost got me fired.
Which one?
Represent the GC. So I play it. And at that time in the 90s, it wasn't like, you weren't saying Crip, cuz in songs.
Yeah.
You might have gotten away, like Mac 10 got away with Damu.
Yeah.
And they didn't really understand what Damu meant at the time, so that he got to slide through that on Who Bangin'. But when Represent the GC, when I played that, they really lost it at the radio station. Yeah. They had a meeting.
Yeah, because they was calling out all their hoods.
They was like, that third verse.
But we didn't make it for it to be on the radio.
No, I know,
we
absolutely.
Making it like a posse jam.
Absolutely,
like, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. But I'm on the radio, I'm doing what I'm doing. So it's like, okay. I remember saying to myself, I could just edit this out, but because they weren't talking bad about anybody,
right?
They were representing where they were from. Represent. They weren't saying we hate this. No. So it was about that. So, but me and the radio station came to an understanding that I would just edit it out.
Right.
But I had played the song probably about 4 or 5 times.
Right.
And they were it was like a big deal for them. Like, we can't do this.
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
You understand? And then, so I just want people to know how much I had to go through just to get these records that are today considered classics. You know what I mean? People look at those records today and be like, oh, that's just automatic to them. Like, but yeah, it wasn't as easy as you think to play these records on the radio at that time. But
you also had more latitude as a DJ to play stuff like that. Like, now ain't no DJ's going to be playing no new records.
Because I program my own stuff.
Yeah,
so. I want to ask you about that record too, Fred, because you said a posse cut, and that's one of my top West Coast posse cuts is Represent the GC. I just think that they all came at it. They just came at it, not at each other, but I think they were all trying to get on each other in a way.
They're trying to outdo each other,
trying to outdo each other, but in a musical way where it wasn't too obvious. It was musically in pocket. Everybody, you know what I mean. I want to ask you about these guys though, because I just think these guys are special, man. I just think you get in a studio with these guys. It's just special. These guys are special. They're just something that they do. They still are. They have that. What do you think that is, Fred? Because you work with a lot of people. What is it about this dog pound that if you get in a room with them, it just goes, bro? You could play the beat and it's just, oh, give me a pen, man, and it'll be something hot though. It'll be something hot. It ain't kind of like hit and miss. They're pretty much on 90% of the time. Like they're on. But you tell me, working with them, what do you think it is about their dynamic?
From that first day when I seen how they worked with each other and the synergy between them of like somebody would lay their verse first and another one like, oh yeah, okay, I don't know what I'm gonna come in saying after that, like, and or somebody laid something down and they're all correcting each other and trying to help each other. Nah, you should say this over there. Oh yeah, okay, cool. their camaraderie with their wanting to outdo each other and be better than the guy that's next to him is what made their synergies really dope.
Rest in peace to Nate Dogg, man. I want to ask you about Nate. You've done some special records with Nate Dogg. You and Nate had a real friendly relationship, because I remember when I would come over, he was just like your homeboy. He was like just used to be kicking it at your house, like just like the homie, like just be over there. How did that? I mean, you guys always worked with him. Like he was just always there working to me. Like, why was that with you and him? Why did you guys have that thing about working with each other?
He
so
lived
much?
close by me in the valley at the time. And when he lived in Pomona, he would still be over at my house. But we just had he liked to be in the studio and recording and making and recording songs as much as I like to be in the studio making beats. Yeah. So it was like we filled each other's void kind of in a way. So whenever he didn't have anything to do, he'd just be at my house, or he'd have an idea, but like, man, I'm coming over, man. I got an idea.
Gangsta Nation for Westside Connection you produced that has Nate. Yeah. He was already on that song.
Yes. It was
something he had worked on at your house?
It was something that he worked on at my house that we did for the East Siders.
Really?
For the East Siders album that never came out. Oh. So the East Siders did a couple verses to it, but they didn't, I think Trey D or one of them, they didn't end up liking what they did. So then I just took it aside, and then I went up to this guy named Andrew Shack from Priority Records. He had called me and was like, because I used to do a lot of records for Priority at the time, and he was like, yo, I'm working on the new Westside Connection record. If you got any songs, bring them up here. So I was like, I'm coming up there. I made a CD, and I put Gangsta Nation on it first, just with the beat, with Nate's vocals on it, and then I put like 8 other beats on there. I went up to his office and I played it for him, and he was like, I'm like, yo, I gotta, this record could be a great record for them. And I played it for him, and he was like, nah, it sounds too West Coast. I need something that I can get played on the East Coast. I need something that can get played all over. And I was like, oh, man, all right, man, let me make some more shit. So then as I was leaving, the lawyer in the next room, Craig Marshall, he heard the music playing through the wall. And he was like, yo, he stopped me in the hallway. He was like, yo, what were you playing, Shaq? And I was like, oh, I was playing some records for Westside Connection. He's like, what was that last one you was playing? And I was like, he was like, come in my office. And I played it for him. And he was like, he didn't like this? And he's not an A&R guy. He's just a lawyer. And I was like, nah, he didn't like it. He's like, man, you need to play it for Mac 10 yourself. I'm like, I don't know how to get in touch with Mac 10. He's like, I'm going to call him right now. So he calls Mac 10. He's like, hey, I got FredWreck in my office. And I already knew Mac because I had did MC8 for him before. Mm-hmm. So he was like, he got this record. He wants to come play it for you. Where you at? He's like, I'm leaving on a private jet at 7 o'clock, but if he meets me at Jerry's Deli in the Valley, I'll be there having lunch. So tell him to come meet me there. So I was like, all right, cool. I drove out to Jerry's Deli, and he was in the parking lot. I went and sat in the car with him, and I played him the song, and he listened to about 30 seconds of it. And then he stopped, and he was like, what you doing at 7 o'clock, blood? I was like, I don't know. I ain't doing shit. He's like, go get all your shit, get whatever you need for this beat, bring the drum machine and all that stuff, and meet me in Van Nuys at the private airport. We leaving at 7 o'clock. I'm like, where are we going? He's like, to Chicago. This Cube was in Chicago doing the barbershop. I was like, all right, fuck it. So I went and got all my shit and went to the airport. We flew to Chicago, and the next morning he had a studio time set up for us. And when I got to the studio, I had went and set up the beat and tracked it and put it on the reel and all that. And when Ice Cube and Dub C came in, he had already gave him the beat. They were already writing to it. And Ice Cube came in and he was like, yo, tell me what you think. And he just started rapping his rap for me, like, crazy in my ear. And I was like,
wow, this is Ice Cube.
I was like, Ice Cube, these are like my heroes, dude.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So I was like, yeah, that's hard. So then we recorded it that day, and then he was like, oh, I want to do the intro. I was like, what do you want to do? And he just went. I didn't have a click or anything in the beginning. He just said, I want to say, consider this an invitation to the Gangsta Nation. And the beat just started. Perfectly. It was made. Yeah. And then the beat just came in. Everybody in the room went nuts, right? So then that was that. Then at the end, like I had played like a keyboard line or something, and I was just playing it in my headphones. They had a Moog over there. I didn't bring any keyboards. I just brought my drum machine.
That you killed it too on that.
And then I was playing it out. I was playing it in my headphones. I didn't know that they could hear it. And then he just turned around and was like, and I was like, yo, you guys, you heard that? He was like, yeah, that was dope. Did you record it? And the engineer was like, yeah, I recorded it. And that was the first take.
Kept that, huh?
They kept it. That was it.
Wow. And let me say this about this Westside Connection record, Gangsta Nation. I say this respectfully. I believe that you saved them, because if that song that was the last song.
That was the last song.
Before
their album
mastered,
was done.
it was done.
Yeah, their album was done.
If they would have put that record out without Gangsta Nation, I don't know if that album would have been received the way it was.
They didn't have a lot of strong records.
They didn't. They had good songs on there, but it just, that song though.
I think they had different producers. Like Butter did the first record and it was really consistent.
Yeah,
and good.
this set that. But I mean, I still like Terrorist Threats. Don't get me wrong, I like the album. Yeah. But because with Gangsta Nation,
it makes it good.
It made it so good that whole record.
I agree.
So congratulations on that, man, because that was a monster song. And then you also did Crazy for Snoop Dogg off the Blue Carpet treatment.
Yeah.
That also had Nate Dogg.
Yeah.
Was that before you gave it to Snoop also? Or Nate already? Wow. So Nate was just coming up with these hooks.
Yeah, he would just come over and I would always be making beats. So he'd be like, play me some beats, man. You know, and I'd just play some and he'd be like, all right, man, keep playing that, man. And he'll just sit there and write to it. Or he'll be in the front room playing video games or whatever. And I'd just be in there making something. He'd be like, hey, man, that's good, man. Keep playing that, man.
Really?
And I'd be like, all right, cool. So I'll just keep playing it. And then he'll come in, put the mic on, man. Like Nate was like this.
You work with some incredible rappers. Recently, you worked with Eminem, and I got to tell you, that last album he put out was just on some rap, mind blowing.
That was the Grammy.
Mind blowing, bro. Mind blowing.
That was a Grammy.
Antichrist is one of my favorite records.
Antichrist
man.
is hard.
He kills.
And that's an old record too.
Wow, because he kills that record like lyrically. But I have to ask you, why is he so good, Fred? What is it that you working with him for so long? Because you've been working with him for a long time, because he's from Detroit, like where you're from. And so what is it about this guy that's...
I'm going to tell you what it is. He is obsessed. Well, I don't know if obsessed is the word. He's a student of rap. And when I say he's a student of rap, he studied every rap song and rapper that he was a fan of from the beginning to now. He studied the greats to be the greatest. He really studied the greats. Like he knows, like we'll be in the studio and he'll say one of his raps to me, and then I'll be like, damn, that's hard as fuck. He's like, then he'll say, oh, hey man, are you sure this doesn't sound like that one hieroglyphic song? Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, what hieroglyphic song? I only know 93 Till. I don't know the rest of me. And he knows every song on the album.
Wow.
Or, yeah, man, Naughty by Nature, that one song where Tretch says blah, 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 and he does the flow and everything.
Yeah.
So it's because he studied all that from now to then, is because that's why he's the greatest. He's the greatest of all time.
I mean, to me, I have to say, he might not be everybody's cup of tea, but me personally, on some rap, I'm sorry, bro. I gotta say he's the top.
There's nobody messing with him. He is the greatest of all time.
He's great,
and it's because he studied everybody, and he still studies it. He's obsessed with raps and writing, and it's all he does. He's not just showing up at the studio and put the mic on and he's gonna freestyle something or just do some honky dory shit. He's like, if he lays something down, he understands the importance of his work as an artist. And like, he's going to give you the best shit. He wants to, every bar he says, to make you go, wow. Because he wants to make himself go, wow.
It's mind blowing.
And he is. And he's just like the other day, I was listening to a record that we had did together that was on the Dre's contract for the GTA. And I haven't heard it since it came out. And we went back and listened to it. But now I can look at the lyrics on iTunes and read the lyrics. And I had to stop listening to his rap and just read the lyrics of what he says to be like, what the fuck? Like, he's really like, I didn't put together all the double, triple entendres that he does.
He does.
You know, and it's so clever, and it's so like he's
that's the right word.
He's incredible.
So clever, bro.
He's very
so
clever.
And the way he bends, what I like about him is the way he bends words to make them rhyme. That's just like, oh man, this guy's something else.
He's a genius. He's a real word genius.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think he made it very difficult for a lot of people. Like, I think a lot of people it goes over people's heads. I think he's just too good. I mean, the guy's
but that's okay.
I want to ask you, Fred, about another great record that you did, man, is with 50 Cent and G Unit. You were on that soundtrack, is the Get Rich or Die Trying soundtrack. Yeah. How did that song come about? Have a Party.
That was me and Nate Dogg did that record actually for what was his name? Gorilla Black.
No way.
Me and Nate have a song on Gorilla Black's album. That was the second song that we did. The first one was Have a Party, but he ended up he did a verse to it, but it wasn't that good, or I don't know, it just didn't come out right. So we threw that one to the side, and then we did some other stuff. And then, but I always liked that. I always liked not, you know, and all that stuff to it. So Paul Rosenberg was telling me he was working on 50 stuff, so I sent him just that beat by himself on a CD. I like FedExed it to him or something, and then he called me back when he got it. Was like, "Yo, don't give this beat to anybody. Don't play it for anybody. I'm gonna play it for 50. We got to get 50 on it." And Paul Rosenberg is the one that made it happen.
Made that happen, huh?
So he got 50 on it, and at the time 50 was signing Mobb Deep, and he put them on it, and
monster.
Then they flew me out to New York to sit with the mix because they had somebody mixing it. I forgot who it was that was mixing the record, but I didn't like their mix. And I always like to mix my own records, but also, I'll try to be a team player and not like rock the boat.
Yeah.
So they mixed the record, and then the next day, Paul Rosenberg was like, "What did you think?" I'm like, "Honestly, bro, I don't really like how the mix came out." He was like, "But we need this person to mix all the records." One person was mixing it. I'm like, "Look, let me just go in there today." It was at Sony Studios. Let me go in there and let me do my own mix, and you guys can pick which one you want.
Right.
Let me just do my own mix.
Right.
And they went in. I went in and did my own mix, and that was
that's the one they picked. Huh? I want to ask you, Fred, about Dr. Dre, because you've worked so much with Dr. Dre. And first of all, congratulations on the Grammy, because you're a Grammy Award winner with Anderson .Paak.
Thank you.
So congratulations, because he's one of my favorite artists. I think right now in this day and age, I believe that he's probably the best artist out right now. I think that
he's incredible.
He's amazing, that guy.
And he's fun to work with too.
He's amazing, right?
Yeah.
I love his music.
That's my bro.
Yeah. So congratulations with that. But I want to ask you about, we hear the word, the ICU. Is that right? So you guys are a group that works with Dr. Dre in his, I guess it's his camp in a sense,
Yeah.
Explain what the ICU is and how that works with Dr. Dre in Aftermath.
It kind of was like by accident that we started calling it, because we go do sessions, and Focus is like kind of like our leader, not our leader, but he's like our go-to. He's the one that organizes us and oversees us all. So when Dre don't need to call 10 people to have a studio session, he'll talk to Dre and be like, "All right," and then he'll message us all like, "All right, Dre wants to work at 11," and he'll organize everybody being there. So then in our group messages, we started kind of just like, he'll send a message like, "All right, surgery, we need surgery in the ICU," or "So we need you guys in the ICU, in the intensive care unit. The doctor wants to work." So we started calling ourselves the ICU.
Wow.
Because Dre wants to work at 11, ICU at 11 or whatever. ICU and the ICU at 11.
Yeah.
All right. So that's kind of how it started. And it was like, and then, it started out just as the producers, like me, Focus, Dem Joints, Bluetooth, and then later on we had Preach came in, and then we started, and then some of the writers, we consider them the ICU. Some of the writers that work with us that come in, we're like they're ICU too, and the engineers like that come in and work with us. All of us in there are just there to support Dre, and we just call ourselves the ICU.
Wow.
It was like a loosely said thing, and now it's like made an official. And then when we do the credits, it's not like they're gonna put produced by this person, this person, this person, this person, this person, and this person, because we're there to support Dre.
Right.
So we're all like, man, just put produced by Dr. Dre in the ICU.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I have to ask you, working with Dr. Dre, what is it, like I asked you about Eminem, what makes him so great at what he does? Working with him, around him, like what is it about his technique that says that this is one of the reasons why this guy's successful?
He's extremely dedicated to what he does. And he doesn't care about breaking any rules. You know what I'm saying? And he puts in the time and the work and the hours to do things over and over and over again until it's perfect in his mind. In
his mind, yeah.
Not in our mind.
Yeah.
Because in our mind sometimes like, man, it was cool how
it was, yeah.
I want to change it. All right, cool, let's change it. Like, and he's really good at pushing and making the best out of people.
Huh?
You know what I mean? Even me, like I'm in there as a musician. The other guys that play are incredible musicians, guitar players and keyboard players. Like I play okay, but like when you're with him and he's pushing you, like, nah, do it. do it like this, and I need the chord to be like that. And you're like challenging yourself. He's really good at challenging and getting the best out of the artists that are there. You know, and this is before he even gets to the mix. You know, he's producing everybody from when we're there as musicians to the writing, and then like on Snoop's record, like he's coming in, and I mean, let him tell you how many times he had to come in and do one word over. And I'm not exaggerating, because it didn't feel right to him. And that's what makes his brilliance is like he wants it to be, he has a vision in his head, and he's not going to stop and finish it until it gets to that point where he's done. And then it's going into the mix. Then we're mixing. And then while we're mixing, you know, I want to add a kick here. This is not, because while you're mixing, things start coming out and things start going away too. So you want to start adding layers to it, or removing layers, or doing things to it to bring it, to bring the sprinkles of it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then when he's mastering it, it's the same thing. He's probably going back and forth with Big Bass Brian. Probably on Snoop's last record, I probably would say he probably went back about 20 times, maybe.
Really?
Back and forth, mastering between songs and making sure this song matches this song, and this one needs a little high. He's a perfectionist.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
It's amazing, man.
And a lot of people don't want to put the time. They're like, oh, this is cool, let's do it.
Yeah.
But that's what sets him apart.
And it's crazy because I just go so far back with him from surgery, from the first Dr. Dre record. You know what I mean? So
yeah, don't tell him you don't want to hear about that.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that's how far back we go, because I know he's advanced at this level today, but I'm just saying, even those early records were like a big deal to me back then. But I want to ask you about him, Fred, because I mean, he's just, to me, that Compton record that he did, it was mixed so good. That was one of the best. I can't say that I was in love with that record, but the mix of that record, I had to listen to the album like 20 times just because I couldn't believe that he got so many sounds in there and they all were clear.
Right.
And they were
Everybody
sitting in
says the
different
same
places.
thing.
And I was like, how did this guy get all these sounds? And it's thumping. It's that bottom end. That's that
it's
LA.
all of it.
It's all of it, man.
Yeah, it's all.
And I think
from
he
the low
has the
to the
signature.
high.
I think he has the signature LA sound. I just think his frequency and the way he does the bottom end of songs, it just reminds me it's LA. It's what we play, bumping. We're about the bass. You know what I mean? But I got to give Dre his credit on that.
He's besides as being a producer, he's the greatest mixer of all time.
Why do you think that is? What is it?
Because
that he does?
started out DJing, and he know how to make mixtapes and DJ, and how to do transitions and how things are supposed to sound. It's like his ears are trained. It's like Martha Stewart tasting things. She knows exactly what it's supposed to taste like. Her taste buds and her palate has been trained from over time. You know what I'm saying? And his ears is the same thing.
Yeah.
He's been listening to music and making music and touching music and DJing and seeing how people react to it for almost his whole life. So it's like
natural to him.
It's natural to him, and it's something that he's trained himself to do this whole time. He's only just getting better and better and better.
And I love that record that he did with the Schoolie D sample on this last Snoop Dogg album. That I told you I had to hit you. Hey man, that is out of here. Like that is out.
I mean, and you got to be from the old school to know that.
Oh my God!
You know
when I heard the Schoolie D in it, I said, "Oh man, Dr. Dre, you crazy for that one, man. That was crazy." Yeah. Thank you, Fred, for coming through though. I appreciate it, man. This has been fun.
You're my brother from day one, man. You always was there for me and believed in me, and I always thank you for that.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, and you came through. So I was right. That's why I always tell people, hey, my ear's golden, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you are. You're golden.
Right. Well, thank you for checking us out, everybody. Of course, it's Westside Radio Online. It's Julio G. We're going to come back with more and hit you with more. Make sure to come follow me, Julio G 1580. Check out our IG, Westside Radio Online. And Fred, where can they find you at, man?
FredWreck, Instagram, pretty much. I'll be on Instagram.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, check it out. We'll catch you on the next one, man. Julio G, Westside Radio. Yes, right.
Westside Radio.